Commander Zixathala of the Celestial Dominion pressed her elongated fingers against the crystalline surface of the observation deck. Her 6 eyes tracked the movements below as her fleet's landing crafts descended toward the contested world of Kepler 442b. The pale blue humanoids called it Earth, though the Galactic Registry had already redesignated it as Mining Sector 7749 Delta. The conquest should have been simple. Her intelligence reports painted these humans as a primitive species barely 3 centuries into their industrial age. They had crude chemical rockets, basic energy weapons, and no understanding of quantum manipulation or gravitic fields. Most telling of all, they came from what the galactic community classified as a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that no civilized species had ever evolved there naturally. Deathworlders were known throughout the galaxy as fragile creatures who somehow survived on planets that would kill most sentient beings within hours. They typically possessed weak constitutions, short lifespans, and primitive survival instincts. The few Deathworld species encountered before had been easily conquered or had surrendered immediately upon seeing superior technology. Zixthala's mandibles clicked with satisfaction as she watched her forces deploy. The first Dominion fleet consisted of 200 vessels, each carrying advanced plasma weaponry, energy shields, and veteran soldiers from 12 different worlds. Her own species, the Keth Mori, were renowned warriors who had conquered 47 systems over the past millennium. Standing nearly 10 feet tall with chitinous armor and 4 arms capable of wielding multiple weapons simultaneously, they were considered among the galaxy's elite fighting forces. The preliminary bombardment had been textbook perfect. Her ships had eliminated the humans' orbital installations, disabled their communications networks, and destroyed their primary military installations. The electromagnetic pulse weapons had rendered their primitive electronics useless across entire continents. By all calculations, organized resistance should have collapsed within the first hour. But something was wrong. Lieutenant Krexdahl approached with visible confusion etched across his scaled features. "Commander, we're receiving unexpected reports from the surface teams." "Define unexpected," Zixthala responded, her voice carrying the authority of countless victories. "The humans aren't surrendering, ma'am. Even after witnessing our superior technology, they continue to fight. More concerning, they're employing tactics our combat algorithms don't recognize." Zixthala's primary eyes narrowed, while her auxiliary eyes continued monitoring the tactical displays. "Elaborate." "Initial landings in Sector 7 encountered standard resistance. Our troops eliminated their defensive positions efficiently, but instead of retreating or surrendering, the surviving humans scattered into small groups and disappeared into the terrain." "Guerrilla tactics," Zixthala mused. "Primitive but understandable. Continue." "That's just it, Commander. These aren't standard guerrilla operations. The humans are using the environment itself as a weapon. In the Amazon basin, they're somehow turning the local flora and fauna against our forces. Trees that appeared normal suddenly collapsed on our armored units. Animals we hadn't classified as threats began coordinated attacks on our supply lines. Zixthala's mandibles twitched with irritation. "Impossible. Our environmental scanners detected no dangerous megafauna. The largest land predators barely weigh 200 kilograms. "Yes, ma'am. But the humans aren't using single large predators. They're orchestrating swarm attacks using thousands of smaller creatures. Insects that inject paralytic toxins, mammals that carry disease vectors, reptiles that strike from concealment. Our soldiers are reporting that the humans somehow predict and coordinate these attacks." The commander's attention shifted to the tactical display showing Sector 12, where her forces had landed in what intelligence designated as urban terrain, primitive concrete structures clustered together. "What about the city operations?" Krexdahl's secondary arms gestured nervously. "Even more confusing, ma'am. The humans have turned their own infrastructure against us. Buildings we thought were abandoned were actually elaborate traps. Streets and tunnels form maze-like networks that channel our forces into kill zones. They're using primitive chemical explosives with devastating effect. Chemical explosives? Zixthala's voice carried disbelief. Against our adaptive armor? The explosives aren't targeting our armor directly, Commander. They're bringing down entire structures on top of our units. Thousands of tons of rubble moving at terminal velocity. Even our shields can't deflect that much kinetic energy. Zixthala studied the incoming reports with growing concern. Her forces were technologically superior in every measurable way, yet they were taking casualties at rates that exceeded all projections. The humans were fighting with a combination of desperate creativity and environmental knowledge that her tactical computers couldn't predict or counter. "There's something else, ma'am," Krexdal continued. "We've intercepted human communications. They're not speaking like a defeated species. They're angry. Anger is expected during conquest operations." "Not like this, Commander. Our translators are having difficulty processing their emotional context. But the intensity levels are beyond anything in our databases. It's as if causing them pain has made them more dangerous, not less." Zixthala pulled up the psychological profiles the Dominion had compiled on humans. According to galactic behavioral standards, Deathworlders should become increasingly compliant when faced with superior force. The harsh environments that shaped their evolution typically produced species that conserved energy and avoided unnecessary risks. Yet these humans were exhibiting the opposite behavior. "Commander," a communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's broadcasting on multiple frequencies in the dominant human language." "Put it through," Zixthala ordered. The voice that emerged from the speakers was rough, gravelly, and carried an undertone that made even the Kethmori warriors shift uncomfortably. The universal translator struggled with the emotional content before producing words. "Unknown aliens, this is General Sarah Martinez, United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked our world without provocation and killed innocent civilians. You have made a serious mistake. We are not some helpless species waiting to be conquered. We are humans. We are from Earth. And we are very, very angry." The transmission continued. "Your technology is impressive, but you clearly don't understand what you're dealing with. We didn't evolve on a peaceful garden world where conflicts are resolved through negotiation. We evolved on a planet that has tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and global pandemics. We've fought everything from bacteria to megafauna to ourselves." Zixthala felt an unfamiliar sensation as she listened, something her species hadn't experienced since their early evolution. Was this unease? Every human you see before you is a descendant of survivors. Our ancestors didn't just adapt to Earth's dangers, they thrived in them. They turned predators into food sources, tamed forces of nature, and built civilizations in environments that would sterilize your homeworlds. We are not victims of our harsh planet. We are its children. The general's voice grew harder. "You want to see what Deathworld evolution produces? You want to understand why humans survived when so many other Earth species went extinct? Then keep fighting us. But understand this, every human you face has inherited billions of years of survival instincts, tactical thinking, and adaptive capability. We don't just fight to win, we fight to survive. And we are extremely good at it." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Krexdal's voice was barely above a whisper. "Commander, what are your orders?" Zixthala stared at the planetary display, where red indicators showed increasing human resistance across all landing zones. Her forces weren't just encountering unexpected tactics, they were facing a species that had been shaped by evolutionary pressures no civilized world had ever experienced. The humans weren't fighting like desperate primitives. They were fighting like apex predators defending their territory. For the first time in her military career, Commander Zixathala of the Celestial Dominion began to question whether her forces were the hunters or the hunted. The battle for Earth was about to begin in earnest, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Unfortunately for the Dominion, they were about to discover that Earth had bred the most dangerous dogs in the known universe. The veterans emerge. Captain Marcus Ghost Rodriguez crouched behind the twisted remains of what used to be a shopping mall, watching the alien patrol march past his position. The purple-skinned creatures moved in perfect formation, their energy weapons scanning methodically for threats. Their technology was impressive: personal force fields, advanced targeting systems, and armor that deflected most conventional weapons. But Marcus had learned something during his 15 years in Earth's Special Forces. Technology only worked when you understood the environment. And these aliens clearly didn't understand Earth. Behind him, spread across the ruins of downtown Denver, were 47 other veterans from conflicts across 6 continents. They represented every branch of Earth's military, from Navy SEALs to Russian Spetsnaz, from British SAS to Australian SASR. Age had slowed some of them, injuries had marked others, but every single one carried something the aliens couldn't comprehend. Decades of experience fighting thinking enemies on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Sergeant First Class Elena Volkov crawled up beside Marcus, her weathered face showing the scars of too many battles. At 52, she was ancient by special operations standards, but her eyes held the calculating intelligence that had kept her alive through 3 major conflicts. "The big bastards rely on their shields too much," she whispered in accented English. "They think energy deflection makes them untouchable." Marcus nodded. He'd been watching the aliens for 6 hours, studying their movement patterns, their reaction times, their tactical weaknesses. The creatures were tall, strong, and possessed technology that made human equipment look like toys. But they moved like soldiers who had never faced an enemy capable of adaptive thinking. "Jackson, what's your read on their command structure?" Marcus spoke into his throat mic. A voice crackled back through their jury-rigged communications system. Master Chief Petty Officer James Jackson was positioned 3 blocks north, watching another alien patrol. "Classic hierarchical setup, Ghost. The ones with the fancy armor make decisions, the grunts follow orders. No initiative at squad level. They're waiting for instructions on everything." "Copy that. Williams, you still tracking their supply convoy?" "Roger," came the reply from Staff Sergeant Maria Williams, positioned on a rooftop overlooking the aliens' main supply route. "Same pattern every 2 hours. Heavy escort, but they're following the main roads. These guys have never heard of IEDs." Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. The aliens had superior firepower, better armor, and technology that bordered on magical, but they were fighting like a conventional military force against an enemy they didn't understand. They held territory by day and retreated to fortified positions at night. They followed predictable patrol routes and established supply lines based on human infrastructure. They were fighting the last war, not this one. "Listen up," Marcus transmitted to his scattered team. "We've been observing for 6 hours. Time to send a message. Volkov, what's the status on our surprise packages?" Elena's voice carried satisfaction. "Improvised devices are in position at 12 locations, nothing fancy. Fertilizer, diesel fuel, and hardware store specials, but physics is physics, even for aliens." The plan was elegantly simple. The veterans had identified the aliens' most critical weakness: overconfidence. The extraterrestrial forces expected humans to fight like a conventional military. They anticipated massed formations, direct assaults, and predictable tactics. They were not prepared for an enemy that had spent decades learning to kill with whatever was available. "Remember," Marcus continued. "These aren't human enemies. We don't know their psychology, their culture, or their breaking point. But we know they bleed. That's enough." Technical Sergeant David Kim, a combat engineer with 3 tours in Afghanistan, broke into the channel. "Ghost, I've been studying their equipment. Their shields deflect energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles, but they're not configured for low-velocity impacts or chemical reactions." "Meaning?" "Meaning a crossbow bolt moves slow enough to penetrate their shields. So does a thrown knife. And chemical explosives don't rely on kinetic energy. They create pressure waves the shields can't deflect." Marcus felt the familiar calm that preceded combat operations. Around him, 47 other veterans were performing final equipment checks using weapons and tools that would have made their alien enemies laugh. Compound bows liberated from sporting goods stores. Hunting knives balanced for throwing. Improvised explosives built from hardware store components. Even medieval weapons taken from museums and collector shops. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity's most advanced warriors were about to fight an interstellar empire using Bronze Age tactics and guerrilla warfare techniques. "Phoenix Team, this is Ghost. Execute Operation Deathworld." Across the ruins of Denver, 48 veterans began to move. Elena Volkov struck first. Her target was an alien communication relay, heavily guarded but positioned according to standard military doctrine, on high ground with clear sightlines. The aliens had established it in a corporate office building, assuming the elevation provided tactical advantage. They hadn't considered that elevation also meant isolation. Elena had spent 6 hours mapping the building's layout, identifying structural weak points, and calculating blast patterns. The improvised explosive she'd planted in the basement wasn't sophisticated. 50 pounds of ammonium nitrate mixed with diesel fuel and accelerated with aluminum powder. But it didn't need to be sophisticated. It just needed to bring down 40 stories of concrete and steel onto the aliens inside. The explosion lit up the night sky, and the building collapsed in a cascade of debris that crushed the communication relay and its guards. The alien shields that could deflect plasma bolts were useless against several thousand tons of falling building. 3 blocks away, Master Chief Jackson led a team of 6 veterans in an assault on an alien supply depot. The extraterrestrials had established it in a shopping mall, using the large interior spaces to store equipment and weapons. Their security followed standard patterns: perimeter guards, regular patrols, and electronic surveillance. They hadn't anticipated an enemy that understood retail architecture better than they did. Jackson's team entered through service tunnels that connected to the mall's underground delivery areas. They moved through maintenance corridors, ventilation systems, and employee passages that the aliens didn't know existed. When they struck, it was from 6 different directions simultaneously, using weapons that the alien sensors couldn't detect. Crossbow bolts took down sentries silently. Thrown knives penetrated shields that expected high-velocity impacts. Improvised explosives destroyed critical equipment while the guards were still trying to understand how humans had appeared inside their secure facility. But the most devastating attack came from an unexpected source. Colonel Sarah Henderson had retired from active duty 8 years earlier after a distinguished career in military intelligence. At 61, she was the oldest member of Marcus's team and hadn't fired a weapon in anger for nearly a decade. But she possessed something that made her more dangerous than any weapon system. She understood how military minds worked. Henderson had spent the day studying the alien command patterns, analyzing their decision-making processes, and identifying their operational priorities. She realized that while the aliens were technologically superior, they were also predictably logical in their tactical thinking. So she gave them exactly what they expected: a conventional human military response. Henderson used captured human military equipment to broadcast fake radio transmissions across multiple frequencies. The messages described massive troop movements, reinforcement operations, and coordinated counterattacks that didn't exist. She created phantom divisions, imaginary air support, and fictional naval operations. The aliens intercepted these transmissions and responded exactly as she predicted. They shifted forces to counter threats that weren't there, repositioned units to defend against attacks that would never come, and divided their strength to respond to multiple fictional emergencies. While the alien commanders were chasing shadows across 3 states, Marcus's veterans struck at targets the enemy had left underdefended. Weapons depots exploded in carefully choreographed sequences. Supply convoys disappeared into carefully prepared ambushes. Communication nodes went silent as buildings collapsed or key equipment mysteriously malfunctioned. But the psychological impact was even more important than the physical damage. The aliens had expected to fight primitive humans with crude technology. Instead, they found themselves under attack by an enemy that seemed to materialize from nothing, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before retaliation was possible. Their advanced sensors couldn't track attackers who used low-technology weapons. Their tactical computers couldn't predict enemies who abandoned conventional military doctrine. Most disturbing of all, the humans didn't fight like soldiers defending their homeland. They fought like predators hunting prey. By dawn, the alien forces in Denver had lost 30% of their equipment, most of their command infrastructure, and all of their operational confidence. Commander Zixathala's forces still held the city, but they no longer controlled it. And across the ruins, 48 veterans prepared for the next phase of their campaign. They had proven something important to both themselves and their alien enemies. Advanced technology couldn't overcome superior tactics when deployed by warriors who understood both the terrain and the true nature of combat. The aliens were about to learn why humans had survived Earth's evolutionary pressures when so many other species had gone extinct. It wasn't because they were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. It was because they were the most dangerous. The final lesson. Commander Zixthala stood in the ruins of what had been her command center, staring at tactical displays that showed the systematic destruction of her invasion force. In 72 hours, the humans had transformed from a conquered species into an unstoppable resistance movement. Every tactical doctrine the Galactic Dominion had developed over 1,000 years of conquest had proven useless against these Deathworld veterans. Her communications officer approached with obvious reluctance. "Commander, we're receiving another transmission from the human called General Martinez." "Put it through," Zixthala commanded, though part of her dreaded what she would hear. The same gravelly voice emerged from the speakers, but this time it carried an undertone of grim satisfaction. "Commander Zixthala of the Celestial Dominion, this is General Sarah Martinez. I'm broadcasting on frequencies we know you monitor." Zixathala's mandibles clicked in surprise. How did the humans know her name and rank? By now, you've realized that conquering Earth isn't going to be as simple as your previous campaigns. Your forces are taking heavy casualties, your supply lines are disrupted, and your command structure is compromised. You're probably wondering how primitive humans are defeating a superior military force. The general paused, and Zixthala could hear background sounds, explosions, weapon fire, and what might have been human voices coordinating attacks. The answer is simple. You're not fighting humans, you're fighting Earth itself. Every human soldier you face has been shaped by a planet that kills without mercy, teaches without forgiveness, and rewards only those capable of adaptation under extreme pressure. We are not the victims of our harsh world. We are its chosen representatives. Zixthala pulled up casualty reports as Martinez continued speaking. The numbers were devastating. The Dominion had lost 60% of its ground forces, most of its equipment, and all of its strategic momentum. More concerning, human attacks were growing more sophisticated and coordinated with each passing hour. You made the mistake of studying human technology instead of human nature. Our weapons are primitive, but our tactics have been tested against the most dangerous environment in the known galaxy. We've been fighting for survival since before your species discovered fire. Every generation of humans represents millions of years of evolutionary pressure that produced the most adaptable predators in the universe. The transmission continued, and Zixthala realized she was hearing something unprecedented in Galactic Dominion history. A conquered species explaining why their conquest had failed. Your soldiers are individually superior to ours, stronger, faster, better equipped, but they've never fought an enemy that uses the environment as a weapon. They've never faced opponents who can improvise effective tactics from whatever materials are available. Most importantly, they've never encountered warriors who consider death an acceptable outcome if it means protecting their territory. In the tactical center, alien officers worked frantically to coordinate their remaining forces. But every position they established was somehow compromised. Every supply convoy was ambushed. Every communication was intercepted or jammed. The humans had turned Earth itself into a weapon system that the Dominion couldn't counter or understand. Commander, you're probably wondering how we obtained your personal information. The answer demonstrates another fundamental difference between your species and ours. Your soldiers carry identification, maintain digital records, and follow communication protocols that assume secure channels. They're fighting a civilized war according to galactic conventions. Zixthala felt cold realization washing over her. The humans had been monitoring Dominion communications from the beginning, learning alien protocols, and adapting their tactics based on intercepted intelligence. We don't fight civilized wars, Commander. We fight survival wars. That means no rules, no conventions, and no limits except victory or extinction. Your soldiers hesitate to damage infrastructure because they plan to use it after conquest. Our soldiers see infrastructure as ammunition to be expended for tactical advantage. The general's voice grew harder. You want to understand human nature? Here's a history lesson. 75 years ago, humans fought a global war that killed over 50 million people. We used every weapon available, destroyed entire cities, and developed atomic weapons specifically to end the conflict through maximum destruction. That was us fighting ourselves. What did you think we would do to invading aliens? Zixthala accessed her species' psychological profiles of various conquered worlds. The Dominion had always relied on superior technology to break enemy morale quickly, minimizing casualties on both sides. The strategy had worked against 47 different species across the galaxy. It was failing spectacularly against humans. But here's what should really concern you, Commander. The forces you're fighting right now represent less than 1% of Earth's military capability. You've encountered some veterans in one city on one continent. Earth has 7 continents, hundreds of nations, and billions of humans who are getting angrier every minute you remain on our planet. Martinez paused, allowing this information to sink in. Every human military organization is now studying your tactics, your technology, and your weaknesses. Our engineers are reverse engineering your equipment. Our scientists are analyzing your biology. Our strategists are developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize your advantages. In 72 hours, you've provided us with a complete education in galactic warfare. Zixthala reviewed intelligence reports about human industrial capacity. The species had demonstrated an alarming ability to rapidly convert civilian manufacturing to military production. More disturbing, they seemed to view technological disadvantage as a problem to be solved rather than an insurmountable obstacle. Here's what happens next, Commander. You can withdraw your forces now and avoid further casualties. We'll allow your surviving ships to leave Earth space without pursuit. In exchange, you'll broadcast a message to your Galactic Dominion explaining why the conquest failed. You'll recommend that Earth be classified as a restricted world and removed from future invasion plans. The offer was delivered without emotion, like a business proposition rather than surrender terms. Alternatively, you can continue this campaign. If you choose that option, understand what you're committing to. Every human nation will mobilize its entire population for total war. We'll turn our industrial capacity to producing weapons specifically designed to kill your species. We'll study your biology until we understand how to create targeted biological weapons. We'll reverse engineer your technology until we can build ships capable of reaching your homeworld. Zixthala felt something she hadn't experienced since her species' early evolution: genuine fear. Earth has 3 billion humans capable of military service. We have industrial facilities that can produce millions of weapons per day. We have scientists who solved atomic theory using primitive mathematics and engineers who can build functional technology from scavenged materials. Most importantly, we have something your species clearly lacks: experience fighting for survival against impossible odds. The general's final words carried absolute conviction. Commander, your species has spent 1,000 years conquering primitive worlds with minimal resistance. You've forgotten what war actually means. We remember. We've never stopped practicing, and we're very, very good at it. The transmission ended, leaving Zixthala alone with the impossible choice between retreat and extinction. 6 hours later, the surviving Dominion forces began withdrawing from Earth. Commander Zixthala's official report to the Galactic Dominion contained a single recommendation: Earth should be classified as a restricted death world. Human military capabilities exceed all existing threat assessment parameters. Further contact is not advised. The report also contained a personal addendum that would change galactic politics forever. The humans are not a primitive species that happen to evolve on a dangerous world. They are the ultimate product of that world's evolutionary pressures. They represent what happens when a planet deliberately breeds the perfect predator. We are fortunate they are currently confined to a single system. Any species that encounters humans should remember this. They did not survive Earth despite its dangers. They survived Earth because they became more dangerous than anything else on it. 3 months later, when the Galactic Dominion received Zixthala's full report, the ruling council made an unprecedented decision. Earth was placed under absolute quarantine, with military orders to destroy any ship attempting to approach the Sol system. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species was classified as too dangerous to contact. The humans, meanwhile, began studying the abandoned alien technology scattered across their planet. Within a year, human scientists had developed functioning spacecraft. Within 5 years, they had established colonies on Mars and Europa. Within 20 years, human exploration ships began appearing at the edge of galactic space, carrying a simple message: Greetings from Earth. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. The galaxy would never be the same. And in the deepest archives of the Galactic Dominion, Zixthala's final report served as a permanent warning to any species that might consider challenging humanity. They call themselves Deathworlders, but that term implies they are victims of their harsh environment. This is incorrect. Earth did not create humans despite its dangers. Earth created humans because of its dangers. They are not survivors of a death world. They are living weapons forged by evolution itself. Fear them,